we can use several types of variables when writing macros. Let's take a look at them. So I'm going to create variable 1 and assign digital value. We can assign integer number as well as fractional. So I'm going to assign integer number to this variable and fractional number to the next one, and run the macro step by step. I'm going to use F8 key for that. And if we look at those variables in the variable area, we can see variable type is specified for each of these variables automatically. These variables have digital values, so we can use them in any expression. For example, we can add variable 1 and variable 2 together. We can also divide by, let's say, 100 and multiply by some number as well, and so on. Then we can run the macro step by step and look at the result. We can use parentheses here as well. Run macro again, and so on. Another type of variables is string type. We should use double quotes when assigning values to such type of variables. We should put the value of the variable in between these double quotes. We can use any type of letters. And then when we run the macro, variable type string will be specified automatically in the variable area. We can add these type of variables together. For example, let's add a variable 4 and variable 5 together. Run the macro. And as we can see, the value of the variable 4 ABC and variable 5 some string concatenated here. And if you want some space between those strings, you should use double quotes for this space as well. Let's run again. And now we can see the space here. And the next type of variables is Boolean type. This type can only take two possible values, true or false. For example, I'm going to assign value true to the variable 7 and false to the next one. And then run this macro step by step. And as we can see in the variable area, variable type Boolean is specified for them as well. So we can use this type of variables with some logic under certain conditions. And the next type of variables is date type. We should use special objects in order to work with this type of variables. Let's expand a list of functions here and look at date time functions. There is, for example, function now, which returns current date. In order to use it in the macro text, we should double click on it or drag directly to the macro text. Let's run the macro. And now we can see the current date here. We're able to use other functions as well. For example, if you want to assign the value of a certain date to some variable, you can use this date serial function. Let's look at this function. This function is more complicated because it has 3 parameters and we should specify them here. Let's look at how we can do that. We should click on here in order to see description of these parameters. As we can see, the first parameter is year, so we should specify the year at first, then the months as a second parameter, and the day as a third. We can see brief descriptions of those parameters. So I'm gonna specify the year, let's say 2015 as a first parameter, 6 as a second, and 15 as a third parameter. Let's run the macro. And as a result, this variable will get the value by American Standard, June 15th, 2015. We can use other functions as well. For example, adding a date or difference between 2 dates and so on. For example, this function allows us to add the interval because it has an interval as a parameter which can take the following values. It can be year. This for Y stands for year in 4 digits, Q for quarter, M for months, Y for day of year, and D for days, and so on. I'm gonna select D, so I'm gonna put small d in between the double quotes. Then I'm gonna specify number of days as a second parameter. Because as you may remember, I selected D, which stands for day. I'm gonna take, let's say, 4 days, and the next parameter is the date itself. So I'm gonna take variable 10 and run the macro. So the system will add 4 days to the date, which is the value of the variable 10, and we can see June 19th, 2015 here. Besides these daytime functions, we have other functions here as well. For example, different string functions. This one here, for example, allows us to identify string length, in other words, number of characters inside the string. Now let's identify the number of characters inside the variable 6, where 2 variables are added together. So I'm gonna double click on this function. You can drag it as well. Then we should specify variable 6 as a parameter, run the macro, and look at the result. And as it turns out, there are 14 characters in this variable 6. And we can see other functions here as well. For example, mathematical functions, which are based on digital values, format function, and so on. will touch on those functions from time to time, or you can look at their parameters and drag them into the macro text. The most important thing when writing macros is to avoid putting different types of variables together in one expression. For example, I'm going to assign digital value to the variable 1 and the string value to the variable 2, and then try to use these two variables in mathematical expression. But we can't put the digital value and the string value together, so it will try to run the macro. We'll get the error message which tells us that mismatch is in the string variable, as well as indicates the line and expression where the error was detected. But if we ignore this message and save this macro, and then we'll try to run this macro, the system will not allow us to do that until we correct this error. So it will make us to go back to the macro text and correct here.